Hello there everybody, this is Kevin again joining you from Shaw Academy, and you're very welcome back to your Foundation in Graphic Design here with us. Today is lesson 3 of our 10 lessons. It's the first on-demand lesson, and today we're going to be looking at Photoshop, creating an image composite. Now, what is an image composite? Fairly straightforward. Compositing is the process of digitally assembling multiple images to create a final image. Now, don't get confused because there is an important difference between collages and composites. When we talk about collages, these are basically glued together to form a collection. They may be intended to tell a particular story, but they will generally have some sort of common connection between them. Composites, on the other hand, then, are presented as one final image, maybe to create an imaginary situation, or maybe to add a little nice effect to a particular image, and you also get some really bizarre and out there ones too. So composites can be a lot of fun too, guys. You can let your imagination run wild a little bit. So I'm going to switch over now to my Photoshop screen. And just as a little bonus and as a little warm-up, we're actually going to create a little simple poster first of all today, guys, as well. So switching over to my Photoshop screen now, you will see it there in front of you. And this is the poster we're going to be creating today, in a couple of simple little steps where we're going to learn some nice techniques along the way also. So first things first, I want to open up my new document. So up to File, New, and I'm going to call it first of all my poster. For today's lesson anyway, you guys can call it whatever you like. Select your size, you can pick any size you want. I'm going to stick with an A4 size, which is international paper. It gives me A4 there. It's in width 210 millimeters, 297 millimeters, which of course is A4. Moving down then we see our resolution. Now, when we see a resolution set to 300, this is generally for print. Anything set for print needs to be at least 300 pixels per inch. Sometimes you get away with a little bit less, but this is the recommended resolution. I don't really want to print my poster today though, guys. I just want to show it on screen and also keep the file sizes down a little bit too. So if your resolution is set quite high, it means your file size will also be quite high. Today is just for screen though, so I'm going to set my resolution to 72. Which is basically the default resolution for anything you see on a screen. Because it's on a screen, I'm going to keep my color mode at RGB also. If I was printing, I would set it to CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow and black. But RGB, red, green and blue is basically the default color mode for screen. So with all that in mind, I'm happy with that. I click OK, and now I have my new default workspace here, my A4 blank document here in front of me. First things first, I want to basically create a nice gradient background. You'll see on my original, I've created a nice gradient from top to bottom here. The difference with the gradient is you can see it blends in two different colors. So say I just wanted to create a default block color. I would go over to my paint bucket tool. By the way, if you don't see your tools, guys, sometimes they might be hidden under each other. So for example, my paint bucket tool was hidden under my gradient tool there. So don't forget to mouse over and click down and to select your different tools. So if I wanted to just do a block color, for example, I would pick any color I wanted. I'm going to leave that at my nice mint green for now. I'm happy with that. And I can just click anywhere in the image then, and it paints in that block color. But that's not really what I want, okay? I want to add a little bit more depth to the design today. So I'm going to Control Z that to undo, so Control and Z will undo it. And I want to create a gradient instead. So over to my paint bucket tool, select my gradient tool this time, and remember guys, you'll always see your options bar, your options panel changing then to whatever tool you select. So it's given me a couple of different options here. You can see my gradient is going from my sort of mint to my sort of light mauve colour here. This is because the colours I've selected in my paint down here are those colours. Okay, so I have my foreground colour and I have my background colour. You guys can of course change these colours to whatever you like, and you will see them then changing up here also. Also then, I have a couple of different options here for the type of gradient I want. Now I just want a linear gradient. which is the first one here, guys. And don't forget, simply alt over or mouse over any of these and they will tell you exactly what they are. So you've got lots of different options there. Finally then, just a little quick one for you. If, for example, you want to go from a single color to transparency, which you will want sometimes, if you just click, it's usually your second preset there, you will see then that I'm going from my color to a transparent background, which can be quite handy sometimes too. But for today, I'm going to basically stick to what the presets are and stick to my two colors there. Photoshop also gives you a couple more presets. Guys, try to avoid these, okay? These are for amateurs. We're not amateurs. We're on the road to becoming professionals, all right? So when you see these are generally done by amateurs. So click OK. I'm happy with all that. Then simply to drag out your gradient, simply click and drag out your gradient. I'm just going to go from top to bottom here. So I'm clicking from top to bottom. And if you want to keep your gradient at a nice straight angle, instead of this, like you can see I'm going off center a little bit, hold down your shift key and it will constrain the angle for you. So hold down shift. So you can see I've just done it there and it's a nice straight line for me. And there you can see now my nice gradient going from top to bottom. Now it's a little bit light here, okay? So if I go back to my original, you can see my one here is a little bit darker. Basically what I've done to achieve this is I've duplicated the layer. So I've duplicated my background layer by pressing Ctrl and J. Don't forget to name your layers, guys, too, by the way, folks. Always good practice, name your layers. I'm going to call this background 2, for example. Background 2. Change my A there because I was typing too fast. By the way, guys, you will obviously have a lot more time to do this in your own time, so I'm going to be going through today maybe a little quicker than you guys will have. So I can see that I've got two different layers. What I've done is I've applied a blend mode to my second layer. Now we talked about blend modes a little bit in lesson 1. But again, guys, don't forget to experiment with these, okay? You get some really interesting, nice effects as you go down. And we're going to be looking at blend modes in more detail in lesson 4 also. But for today, all I did was I added a multiply, okay? And that basically darkened up my image a little bit then. Again, experiment with them for now, and I will explain them in much more detail in lesson 4 also. But for today, that's what I did. So if I go back to my original again, you can see it's looking a little bit more like it there. So I'm happy with my background there now as it is. The next thing I want to do then is I'm going to actually open up some other images and copy and paste them into my poster image here. So I have basically a sort of a graphic of a man here. I also have a graphic of a Bezier curve or Bezier here, and I have some text. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up those other files I have. So file open. And if you want to open, by the way, guys, two files at the one time, simply click, hold down Control and click on the other file that you want to open also. You can open a couple of them together. So click OK, and there I have my graphics. These are pings, guys, okay? They're basically on transparent backgrounds. So when I copy and paste in a ping, if it's on a transparent background, the layer underneath will shine through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this by pressing Control A or Command A if you're on a Mac. I'm on a PC here, so Control A, Control C to copy. Simply click into my poster then and Control V. Now there's a couple of different ways of copying these in, and we'll go through them now in our composites lesson in a second also. So there is my man graphic basically pasted in there. I can close this now if I want, simply close it down. You can see though he's a little big for my poster, okay, isn't he? So to resize him then, again a little shortcut, Control and T or Command and T on your Mac. So Control and T, and you can see then my little handles appear around my man. And I can then drag and resize to anything I want, but I want to constrain the proportions. So to do this, again, go up to your corner, hold down your shift this time, and you can see when I'm dragging and resizing now, he's staying basically in the same proportions. If I didn't hold my shift key, if I turned it off, you can see I can make him a little bit more rotund, or I can make him nice and tall and long either. But I want to constrain the proportions and keeping them in that same size. So I'm happy enough with my size there now. So either click return or just click off, and it will ask you if you want to keep those. So now I'm just going to position my man on my page. I'm happy enough with that. Again, guys, because they're all on separate layers, you can come back and reposition these anytime you like. So I'm going to go back to my original, see how I'm getting on. Yeah, I'm happy enough with that. Maybe I'm going to drag them down off the page a little bit. And there you go. The next thing then, I'm going to do the exact same thing with my graphic. So Control A to select it, Control C into my poster, and Control V. And again, you can see it positions it in there for me and creates a new layer. Again, guys, good practice, name your layers. So I'm going to call that first one Man Graphic. My second one, I'm just going to call it Bezier. IER. Again, you can see this guy is a little bit big, isn't he? If I go back to my original. So I'm going to resize him again, so Control T. You can also, of course, rotate. So if I go to the corner, you can see my little icon changes to the rotate. So I can then rotate around. Again, if you want to hold Shift, it will constrain the angles to you. Okay, so my Shift held, it goes to 15, say, minus 30, minus 45, all the way around. If I don't hold Shift, I can put it to any angle I particularly want. And of course, you can also set your angles in your options bar there at the top also. So I'm just going to rotate it around a little bit. Then I'm going to resize. Again, hold on your Shift if you want to constrain your proportions. And I'm happy with that. So simply click off and go Apply. Or also you can just hit Return as well. So again, I can position that anywhere I like. Again, you guys can experiment a little bit with this. So there's my original. I'm getting close enough. I've just changed the angle there a little bit. But I'm happy enough with that. Next thing then, moving on quite quickly, is I just want to add in some text now this time. Now, the interesting thing about text is you don't have to add a new layer. It will create a new layer for you. So this is the text I've used. I've used a font called League Gothic Regular, by the way, guys. It's a free font that you can download online if you like, but you can use any particular fonts that you like also. And we're going to be looking at typography as well in Lesson 7, and this will definitely open up your eyes a lot more to the font, to the particular fonts that you want to be using. So by clicking anywhere, I'm going to click on there. I'm going to type graphic. It's a little big, guys, isn't it? So I'll simply double click into it and I can change the size then to whatever particular size I like. I'm going to change it down to maybe 120, maybe even a little bit less. You can change, guys. You can experiment with this yourself, guys, too. By the way, because I'm designing for a screen, my sizes here are in pixels. Okay, I can show you how to set up your document for print as well. It would be in points then also, but it's in my measurements here is in pixels today for that reason. So you're going to set that down to about 90 pixels, say. Again, just click anywhere, and there is my text. So you can see I didn't actually have to add a new layer. It automatically added my text layer for me. So I'm going to click anywhere again, DESIGN. There is my other text there. And again, my guides are trying to position everything here for me. You can see my little pink lines there are trying to help me out with my positioning also, which is quite handy. And again, you guys will have more time. You can spend a little bit more time on this. Don't forget about your stacking order, folks. So if, for example, I wanted to maybe seem as if my graphic was going behind my man a little bit, simply click on the layer, drag it down, and you can see there now it's sort of pushed in behind and the rest is shining through there a little bit. Okay, so again, don't forget about your stacking order. You can play around with that. Finally, just my last bit of text then. Graphic design is awesome, of course, as we all know. So I'm typing that in then. Again, you can see this time it's going in behind my little man, so I'm going to have to fix that now in a second. So click off. And you can see my is awesome is actually behind my man graphic, so I cannot see it. So drag it up, and there it is. This time I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. We bring it down to about 60. And there we go. And again, you can position your text then, simply click on your text. By the way, guys, if sometimes it's not, you're not able to select the particular graphic that you want to work on, make sure that your auto select up here is selected. Okay, if I turn that off, Now I can move that, alright, that's because I'm on the layer. But if I clicked off a different layer, if I click on my man graphic layer for example, and I want to click on my is awesome text, my man is going to move, okay, because it hasn't auto selected it because I'm on that particular layer. So to select a layer by automatically, simply click your auto select. So there you go, there is my poster so far. The last thing I want to do is I want to change the color of my text a little bit there. So a couple of different ways of doing this. Simply click into it again, into any one you want. And I want to select this time colors associated with my image already. So to do this, I can use my eyedropper tool. So simply open up your colors and I can click on any color I want on the screen then, and it will automatically change it to that color. So you can use this for anything you particularly want, okay? So very, very handy. You can get the exact same color across a whole range if that is your requirement. So I'm going to stick my color there to the color in the middle there, so that's okay. Again, this time I'm going to click on my design. Maybe change this guy to the sort of browner color. Again, you guys can experiment with these as well, remembering your color theory, of course, from lesson 2. And I can change my is awesome text then to whatever color I want. Then again, you guys can go mad, but you know, try and keep it relatively cohesive if you can at all, okay? Make it all blend together a little bit. So obviously that's too big there and it's crossing over, so I'm going to reduce now my text in my is awesome text again a little bit because it's crossing over there. And I can drag it out there now to make it more legible and it's not crossing over anything. So there we go, guys. Very, very simple little poster created there. So we've added some text, we've colored in the backgrounds, we've added some extra images. The last and final thing now, just one little handy tip, especially for photographs, it's a nice effect. I'm going to add a little vignette effect. That basically means some shading around the edges. So a very simple way to do this. First, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to name it Vin for short, or wine even for any French people out there. And this time I'm going to add another gradient this time, but it's going to be a radial gradient. And I want it to go from black to white this time, back to my default color. So simply double or click on my defaults here and you will see that my colors automatically go from black to white. So but this time I want to switch them around because I want to go from white to black. So as I'm going from the center out, my color is going to go from white to black. So again, with my gradient selected, this time I want a radial gradient though. So click on my radial gradient option, which is my second option in there. And I'm going to drag out now from the middle out to the edge of my page. Now you can see it's created a little dark there, you know, but what can I do? I can of course reduce the opacity. So simply bring the opacity right down and you can see that now it's added that little bit of a vignette effect. If I turn it on and off, you'll see what I mean. So there you go, guys. You can see it's just added that nice little sort of radial vignette effect there. So just a little tip there for you guys. So there you go, guys, a very, very simple little poster, but they are all the elements that you'll need to create your posters. I can also add in some shapes if I wanted to. So if I want to draw in, say, a line, go over to my line over here. You've got lots of different options. You can draw rectangles, ellipses, all these again. Don't be afraid to experiment, guys. So for example, if I wanted to just draw in a line anywhere on my screen there, simply hold down, drag across, again hold shift if you want to make it nice and straight. And there you go, it draws out your shape for you. So if you want to add some shapes to your design also, that is the way to do it. I don't want it for now, I'm just going to get rid of that again, so delete the layer and I'm happy there. Finally then, don't forget to save, so up to File. You can save it as a PSD of course, save as my poster is fine there. If you want to save it as a JPEG, maybe to post online or to post to your friends, and don't forget guys, if you want to share these with the hashtag ShawGraphic, that's hashtag ShawGraphic on our social media, there will be little spot prizes along the way for the best and most interesting designs. So up to File, this time I'm going to go Save As, and I want to save it as a JPEG this time. So save it down as a JPEG, and this will display online. You can post it to all your friends and family, all your artwork, and of course simply click save again the same way. So I'm saving as a JPEG this time. Now it will give you the option then to save the quality. You can save it as a larger file or smaller file as you want, depending on the quality. So maximum is fine. Click OK, and it's now saved as a JPEG. Okay folks, that's the poster. Just basically a little warm-up exercise there for you guys. The next thing I want to do now is move on to our image composite. Okay, much more interesting experiment now. Okay, so we're going to close these down now for a second, and I'm going to go back then and open up the file we're going to be creating today. Okay folks, so this is our image composite that we're going to be creating today. This is actually 3 different images combined to create this one quite striking image, I think you'll agree. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually open up the 3 images that we're going to combine together and show you a couple of nice little tips and techniques to create these composites. So first things first, I'm going to actually open up and show you the 3 separate images. So again, simply up to File, up to Open. And again, to select a couple of images in one go, simply hold down Control or Command and click on your images that you want to open up. So I want my sea image, I want my lighthouse image, and I also want my birds image. So open them up, and you can see Photoshop populating in there. So there you go guys, I have my nice sea image, I have my lighthouse image. Finally then I have my birds image, which is again a ping that was created. It was basically created as a vector in Illustrator, and we're going to be looking at Illustrator now in lesson 5 and 6. So this was originally created in Illustrator as vectors and then basically saved in Photoshop as a ping, and we're going to be looking at that further in this series also. So there you go, there are 3 images that we combine to make this one image that I'm quite a fan of. I quite like this. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we're going to have to create a new document first of all. But a little tip for creating this document, I'm going to basically copy this into a new document. So my C, which is my background image, into a new document. So to do this again, simply Control A to select everything, Control C to copy. A little shortcut then, Control N. So that's Control N will create a new document for you. Now Photoshop is quite clever. It's automatically made my new document the same size as the image I am copying. Okay, so I copied my C image here. I created a new document by going Control N, and Photoshop has magically made it the exact same size for me. Sometimes you won't want that, but I do for now, and thank you very much Photoshop. So I'll click OK. And this time Control V, so Control V to paste it in. So there you go, I've copied my C image into my new composite image here now. So I'm going to actually close down my C image now, I don't need it anymore. Again guys, as is good practice, don't forget to name your layers. So double click on your layer, and I'm going to call it C, fairly straightforward. That is my C layer. Now I can do the same for my other images too, but I'm just going to show you something a little bit different, okay? A little bit different way for dragging images in together. So I'm going to go up to Window this time, and I'm going to arrange my workspace. I'm going to tile all vertically. So up to Window, Arrange, I'm going to tile all vertically. And you can see now Photoshop has tiled all my 4 images together on the screen for me. So I can actually flick between all my different images if I want to. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to literally just drag my my lighthouse. So I'm clicking on my lighthouse image. I go over to my layers panel, and I can actually simply drag that layer by clicking on it, and you can see I'm dragging it now onto my C image. Alright, so simply drag the layer, release, and you can see it's gone in there now nice and handily for me. While I'm at it, I might as well just drag in my birds layer too. So click on my birds image, and again simply dragging in the layer into where I want it, and there I go. So I'm going to go up to Window now again, Arrange, and this time I'm going to consolidate to all tabs, back to where we started basically. But you can see now in my new image I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different layers. By the way, I don't really need my background layer now, so I'm actually just going to delete it. So click on it, click on your trash icon, click yes. Again, don't forget to name your layers. Going to name this one Lighthouse, and I'm going to call my birds layer Birds. Fairly straightforward. So they are my images there. Again, I don't need these images anymore, so I'm going to close these down. So back to my original now, okay? Now you can see I've got a little bit of problem here. First thing I want to do is want to position my lighthouse within my sea layer there. I'm actually going to click off my birds layer, the visibility, because I don't need them for now. So simply turn off the visibility there, and I'm going to concentrate on my lighthouse layer for a second. So I'm going to click my lighthouse layer, and I'm going to actually reduce the opacity a little bit. So clicking my opacity, I'm going to drag it down. The reason I'm doing that is because I can now see my sea layer shining through, and I can now position my lighthouse to wherever I want it on the screen. So I can see roughly where I want to position it. So they're nice and handy. Okay, so I'm happy with it there. Now I also actually want to just resize my lighthouse a little bit. So again, as we saw from a couple of minutes ago, to resize, Control and T. But I've run into a little bit of an issue here. Because my image is a little bit big, I actually can't see my handles for resizing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out. So either click on your zoom icon. You can see the plus symbol there, so I want to zoom out, so I hold down Alt, so push down Alt, and I can click and zoom out. By the way guys, Control plus and Control minus will also do the same thing. It will also zoom in and out for you. So now that I'm zoomed out, I'm going to click Control T again, and this time I can see my handles have appeared here for me. So I'm just going to resize it down ever so slightly. Again, position it to roughly where I want on the screen. Again, because it's a layer, I can always come back and move it afterwards, but get it close enough. So I'm happy with it around there. For all you guys that know about all you photographers out there that know about your rule of thirds, you might want to work off that. And we're going to be looking at that in our next lesson also. But for now, I'm happy with it there. I'm going to click Apply, and there we go. So I can bring the opacity now right back up again if I want. And I'm happy with the positioning of my lighthouse. I'll zoom back in again so you guys can see a little bit clearer. And there we go. The next thing I want to do then, guys, is I want to basically cut out all the areas of this image that I don't want. So I'm going to click on my original for a second. You see, it's just my lighthouse is coming through there, nothing else, all right? I've added my birds separately also too. So, how do I do that? Well, we're going to be using layer masks. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. So I'm going to just, there's no right or wrong way. So I'm going to show you as many different ways as I can today in this lesson. So creating layer masks basically allows the image underneath to sort of shine through as well in the areas that you want. Really, really powerful, and you get some really nice effects using layer masks. And like I said, we're going to be going on looking at layer masks a little bit later in the series, and also, of course, in our advanced course. So to create a layer mask then, I simply go down to my icons down here on my layers panel and add layer mask. You can see there's my third icon in. So I simply click on my layer mask, and now you can see it's added in my mask layer here. Now you're not going to see anything yet because I need to basically now paint out the areas that I don't want, okay? So you could of course erase them, but as I said guys, I just want to show you a couple of different techniques today. So with my layer mask then, I'm going to paint out the areas that I don't want. So I need to select a brush to paint, obviously. So I go for my brush tool, click on that. Now one thing to remember guys is when you're painting out your mask, make sure you're painting in black. Make sure your color is set to black, okay? Otherwise it won't work properly. So make sure your color is set to black and you're painting in black. So there I have my brush selected. Again, my options panel changes up here to reflect my selection there, my tools. I can change the size of my brush. Okay, I want it fairly large for now, so I don't have to spend too much time on this. Paint it out relatively quickly. I can also set the hardness of my brush then. It is exactly what it sounds like. So the less hard, the less dynamic the actual brush will be. Okay, so, but I want to paint it out nice and hard, so I'm going to leave it at 100. I can also then change the opacity and the flow of my brush also. We all know what opacity is now. Flow, fairly straightforward. Think of it like a spray can, okay? So the harder you press down on the spray can, the more flow rate you get, don't you? Okay, so think of it like that. So I'm actually going to turn these down for a second just to demonstrate. So if I set my opacity, say, to 50 and my flow to 50, And if I go to paint this now, you'll see it's a little bit weak, okay? So I'm going to paint out the area I don't want now. You can see my C is coming through, you can see it there, but it's just a little bit weak, isn't it? And it's going to take me a while to paint properly. So simply set your opacity and flow right up to the maximum. And now once you click anywhere, you can see it's coming through there 100%. So now simply paint out the areas that I want to get rid of, okay? So very, very straightforward. Again, you guys, you can spend a little bit more time on this. I'm sort of going a little bit quick on this today to get through the lesson for you, but spend a little bit of time on this and get nice and precise with your actions also, all right? So I'm simply painting out then the areas that I don't want, and I'm going to go on now and just cut out some of the other areas too also in a little bit to get some nice finer detail in there. But this is handy, especially if you're working with maybe quite abstract shapes or things like that too, okay? So I'm just going to roughly paint out all the areas I don't want, and I can leave now some of these areas because I'm actually going to cut out some of these now to get a nice clean line. But especially in around the top area here now, I'm actually going to reduce the size of my brush this time. Again, don't be afraid to reduce the size. Reduce down the hardness, and I'm going to reduce down the opacity and flow because I want to sort of try and blend the images together a little bit, alright? So I want some of the background image coming through, but not all of it. And again, guys, don't be afraid to zoom in too, okay? Spare your eyesight, don't be afraid to zoom in. So I zoomed in there with my brush now a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to a little bit more finer detail this time, okay? So, and you can see it's blending in there a little bit nicer for me. Just want to blend those together. And again, guys, you know, reduce the size of your brush. Take your time. Very important to take your time with this type of work, okay? Don't be in too much of a hurry and enjoy it. It can be quite fun. So I'm just blending those together, and they're sort of coming together now a lot better for me. So I'll blend in the final little areas here. Don't need to worry about these bits down here because I'm actually going to cut these out now in a second anyway. But just for around the more intricate sort of areas there, just blending in nice and gentle as we go along. I'm happy enough with that there now because I'm actually going to come back now and cut out those other areas. So if I zoom out now again, there you go, guys. You can see it sort of blended in a little bit better there for me. The next thing I want to do then is I want to get a nice clean, crisp break here down the sides of my lighthouse. So I'm going to show you another tool now this time. This time I'm going to show you the lasso tool. Now you'll see you've got three different options here. You've got your lasso tool, your polygonal lasso tool, and your magnetic lasso tool. The lasso tool basically allows you to, well, lasso a certain area. So with the general one, you simply drag the area that you want to select, and it will select it like that for you. But that's basically aimed with me being quite steady with my hand, alright, which I'm not at the moment. So I'm going to undo that. Control D, by the way, guys, unselect. So Control D to unselect, Command D. This time I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool, and this creates nice straight lines. So simply point and click, and you can see it creates nice straight lines. Again, even if I hold my shift, I will constrain the proportions then also, okay? So much handier. Your magnetic lasso tool then, it can be quite handy too. This basically tries to stick to the edges of something that Photoshop thinks you're trying to cut out. So for example, if I click my magnetic lasso tool, you can see it's sort of purposely trying to stick to the edges of the lighthouse there. Okay, so very, very handy sometimes too. But again, that's not what I want for today. I'm going to go back to my polygonal lasso tool. And again, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit to spare my own eyesight. So with my polygonal lasso tool selected, I'm going to click right into the corner here of my lighthouse. I'm going to click in there, and I'm going to just drag then down to the bottom, clearing the area. So I'm going to get a nice clean, crisp, straight line, or clean edge along there. So click down there. I'm going to leave a bit of margin for error, so I'm going to click right out onto my sky. This won't affect, don't worry. And you can see then I'm going to close the selection then. You can see my lasso tool, you can see the little zero or little circle there appears when it's coming over to close the selection. You can see my icon changing there. So simply click on that. And this time I'm going to zoom out now because I want to make sure you guys are aware of this. If I delete this now, so simply Control X or press delete, but if I do it right now, which I'm going to demonstrate, You can see I deleted the wrong thing, okay? That's because I'm on my mask here. I'm not actually on my image. So I'm going to undo that, Control Z, Control Z to undo. This time, make sure you click over here on your lighthouse icon in your layers. And this time, Control X to cut it, and you can see there I get a nice, crisp, clean line there straight away. So quickly, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Again, guys, take your time with this. You will have more time than me here today. So again, the exact same thing all the way down, just to get that nice, clean, crisp edge there. And same thing, Control X or delete if you like. And there you go, guys. Now it's coming together a little bit already. So I'm going to switch back to my original so you guys can see. You can see here though on my original, my sea is sort of coming up over my lighthouse a little bit. So that's next now. So again, a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to click back onto my mask layer. So make sure I click on my mask over here in my lighthouse and my mask. And this time I'm going to select a bit of a different brush. So I had basically a nice circular brush there. But if I go up to my brushes, you can see there's lots more options here for you too. And if you simply alt over them, let it settle for a minute, and you can see what each brush then does also. So I want to go for basically a sort of a spatter brush this time. Okay, and I'm going to mask out again with my sort of spatter brush. Again, you can change the sizes a little bit if you want. And of course the opacity and the flow as well all the time when you want then too. So at this time I'm masking the exact same way, making sure my black is selected, and simply now clicking again. You can see areas of the sea are sort of coming through there again, are they? But it's not in that straight pattern, it's in that sort of spatter brush pattern. Really, really handy. So I'm going to just paint over my lighthouse there a little bit. And you can see sort of the spatters coming up there against it. And you can see my opacity and my flow is set down around the 70 to 80%. So you can see it becomes just a little bit opaque, which means you can see the lighthouse coming through there a little bit too. So you get some nice effects with that. And again, you know, take your time with this, guys. Don't be in too much of a hurry. But you can see the nice effect there straight away, can't you guys? Next thing I want to do now, I'm happy enough with that. I'm actually going to just paint in some splashes this time also. So to do this, I'm going to create a new layer. So down, create new layer. I'm going to call this splashes. And this time I'm just literally going to digitally paint basically some white splashes in here. So again, with my brush selected, I have my spatter brush there selected. I can change the size if I want a little bit, or even change the brush. I'm going to select a different brush this time. Change the size down. This time I'm going to select white. You can select any color you want, but I'm going to select white. Click OK. And on my splashes layer then, simply click in, and I'm painting in some splashes. If you overdo it, by the way, guys, which I've just done there, don't forget Control Z will undo, and then Control Alt and Z will go back again. So Control Z or Control Z undoes it, but if you want to go back a couple of steps, hold down Alt at the same time. Okay, so don't be afraid, you will make mistakes, you can go back. There's also the history you can use, but we're not going to go through that today, guys. Okay, Control Z is just quite handy. Now, so I'm literally painting in some digital sort of splashes there, some digital water. Again, take your time with this, guys. You'll have more time than me. You can get it closer to the effect. But you get the idea there, guys. And again, if you want, you can change your opacity and your flow to get that sort of just shining through there ever so slightly. Nice little effect there. Okay, so we're getting through this pretty quick. Again, I go back to my original. You can see now this time that my lighthouse is much darker here, isn't it? So to do this now, I'm just going to basically change the color ever so slightly of my lighthouse. So I'm going to go back to my original now, and I'm going to actually just recolor my lighthouse a little bit. So simply click on my lighthouse layer. I'm going to go up to Image and Adjustments, and I want to adjust basically the hue and saturation a little bit. You've got lots of different adjustments here. Again, please experiment with them, have a little bit of a play around. So this is basically how they work. Simply go up to Adjustments, and I'm going to play around the hue and saturation, because I want to bring my lighthouse, I want to bring it down a little bit so it blends in a little bit better with my image. So I'm going to bring the saturation down. You can see getting more, a little bit more sort of black and white, if you know what I mean. So that's bringing my saturation down. I'm going to bring my lighthouse or my lightness down ever so slightly as well. Again, don't forget to experiment, guys, and making sure you have your preview clicked here. I can see it then changing on the actual screen. If I didn't have my preview selected, I wouldn't know the changes I'm making. I cannot see. But if I click my preview, I can see the changes I am making there. They're pretty extreme there. So I just want to bring my saturation down a little bit, help it blend in a little bit better. I'm happy enough with that, guys. The next thing then, we're nearly there, is I want to basically come back to my birds then after the fact. Okay, so you can see here on my original, I have my birds here, giving that sense of movement to my design. So with that in mind, I'm going to go back to my original. This time I'm going to turn on my birds, make them visible again. Drag them up to where I want to position them, anywhere on the screen, wherever you like, guys. And again, you can obviously resize if you want, but you'll see there then that I can also drag them behind my lighthouse. So be aware of your layers, guys. You can see my middle birds there now disappeared. So I can have them in front, or I can have them behind, depending where you want them, guys, alright? I'll leave that up to yourselves. But a little tip here, you can see in my original, my birds are ever slightly blurred, aren't they? Just to give that sense of motion too. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply a little bit of what's called basically a filter effect, and it's a little bit of a motion blur which is applied to it. So back to my original on my birds layer, I'm going to go up to filter, and I go down to blur this time, and I'm going to apply that little bit of motion blur just to give it that sense of movement. I'm going to drag over so you guys can see a little bit. And again, making sure your preview is selected, you can see there. Now I'm going to bring it right up to over exaggerate so you guys can see a little bit too extreme there, but just a little bit, in around the 3 or 4 pixels is probably fine for this, just to give that little sense of movement. Okay, and it also helps tie everything together a little bit too. So I'm happy enough with that. My blur or my filter effect is now applied. And again, guys, this is just one filter. There's lots more here. I please encourage you to experiment with them. So there is my birds now. Everything's coming together quite nicely. The one thing I'm not happy with is the color actually of my sea and my original sea image here. It's not quite blending quite right for me. So I'm going to actually this time add an adjustment layer. Remember we talked about adjustment layers as being non-destructive editing. So I'm actually going to not apply it directly to the image like I did my lighthouse a little bit when I made the saturation and lightness. I reduced those, so I applied that directly to the image. This time I'm going to apply an adjustment layer. So I'm not going to apply it directly to the sea, but I'm going to apply it to a layer above it. So again, over to my tools panel, down to my create new fill or adjustment layer, which is my 1, 2, 3, 4th row in. And I'm going to change this time, basically the exposure this time. Again, you can change these to whatever you like. Lots of different options here. For example, invert will get you some crazy effects. But like I said, I do encourage you to play around with them. I'm going to get rid of that again. So simply delete it. Delete that layer there. And this time I'm going to basically apply a bit of a exposure layer to that this time and a bit of a color correction. Again, play around with all these guys, you will get some nice effects. I'm just going to increase that a little bit to darken up the color correction a little bit. Increase my exposure a little bit just to give it that bit more sense of light and dark then as well. Again, guys, a lot of this is trial and error, especially depending on the images that you're working with. So I do encourage you to experiment with them. So I know that didn't do too much there, but it definitely just, in my mind, Anya, gave it a bit more depth to it and blended it together a little better. So there you go, guys. That's your first image composite. I hope you have fun creating your own. And like I said, it'd be really great if you guys could come up with some of your own and share them with our hashtag #ShawGraphic on our social media pages also, guys. Finally, not forgetting, of course, to save our work. My bad there, I should have been doing that all along. That was a bit of an amateur mistake. So up to File, Save As. I'm going to call it Composite. So save that, and that saves the Photoshop then layers. Again, if you want to save it as a JPEG to post online or to share with all your friends, simply go down to Save As, and this time select your JPEG. And you can save it that way then also. It's asking you again what size, what image size. Keep it, fairly large if you can. and click OK. So that's it, folks. That's it for today's lesson. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you in lesson 4, where we're going to be looking at photo editing also. So I'm expecting to see some really interesting and exciting composites. Looking forward to that, guys. And you know, have some fun, folks. Have some fun with this. This is a fun thing to do. And so, like I said, enjoy it. This is Kevin at Shaw designing off. Bye for now.